Hey everyone, happy Saturday. It's Shatanice Reese back with you for day number 4. And today we are talking about chronological or functional resumes. If you've been following me, you know that we've been spending the last couple of days talking about resume tips specifically, and then we will move into interview tips soon. So the first day we focused on what's our purpose or our passion. The second day we talked about what should appear at the top section of the resume. Yesterday we spent some time talking about objectives versus career summaries, and today we'll talk about chronological versus functional. So first, before we dive in, who am I? As I stated, my name is Shatanice Reese, and I am a 20-year, I guess you could say veteran, 20 years experience in HR, with the breadth of my experience being in recruiting and also various roles throughout HR. So I've been a consultant as well as working with diversity and inclusion and a generalist. And so I've been in HR for quite some time and have had extensive experience with reviewing resumes and conducting interviews. So I want to share that experience with you. And so for a 14 days span, that's what we've been talking about, resume tips. And as I stated, we're going to move into interview tips here within, I think we'll start tomorrow. Nope, we have one more day of resume tips and then we'll get into interview tips. So continue to stay with me and find out what we're talking about. All right, today's topic, chronological versus functional. First of all, what exactly is a chronological resume? Those are the resumes that you typically see, and that type of resume has your experience listed in reverse order. So you start with your most recent experience and you have the next recent experience and then the next recent experience after that. So for me, my most recent experience includes working at the Riverside Epicenter as well as owning my own business. And then prior to that, I was serving as an HR consultant with Force Johnson Recruiting. And so that's what the chronological resume is. It's listing your experience in reverse order. What's a functional resume? Functional resume is one that focuses on your skills. And so it just really highlights what type of skill set that you've had in your various roles, but it doesn't indicate where necessarily you obtained that type of experience. So we'll talk about each one separately. So the first one, chronological experience, definitely have, as I stated, your most recent experience first, and include, in addition to the title that you held, where. So it's definitely good if you worked in several different states to have the state as well as the city next to where you worked. Hey, Auntie. And so that's helpful for you to indicate where you've been, and it helps people know in terms of your skill set. So for example, if I were to work in California, having experience as an HR professional in California is definitely sought after because of all of the laws and regulations that California has to deal with. So it's incumbent upon me to list, if I ever worked in California, that I had worked there previously. So having your title plus the state and the city of where you worked, and having the actual time frame. So you'll have different schools of thought of whether you need the exact month and year, or the month and actual date that you started. Sometimes you can see where it's just the year. So if you have just the year, that might raise some type of concern or an eyebrow as to why you didn't actually include the month. But your resume won't necessarily be automatically started because you don't have the month and the year. So it's not necessary for you to have the exact date. So for example, if I started working somewhere November 1st, 2010, I don't necessarily need to include the 1st of November. I can have just November, 2010. And that's typically what you see. So having the title, the role that you held, the city and the state, and the time frame. That's typically what you have. And then you have bulleted under there what you've done, a summary of your experience. And so having bullets are nice, easy on the eye. You don't want it to be just necessarily a laundry list of what you've done. Try to include some accomplishments. So, of course, if you've been recognized as, the President's Club, for example, if you're in sales or some type of award that's significant to the business, the bottom line, absolutely include that as what you've done. So again, you're wanting an employer to see, wow, I like their skill set, I like what they've done, I see that they've really excelled in that role, and they've done that, they've indicated that by their awards that they have listed. You can also have a section on your chronological resume down near the bottom that actually talks about your awards and certifications, and that's fine too. So in terms of the functional resume, you wouldn't necessarily have time frames because, again, you're talking about your experience and not necessarily where you earned that experience, where you gained that experience. So you're not talking about the title and attaching it to where you were. So the way that you would structure a functional resume is to have your skill set. So for example, if you're going for or trying to apply for an accounting role and your previous experience doesn't necessarily speak or say accounting, you haven't held accounting roles before, then you would want to talk about, according to the job description, what it is, the skill sets that they're looking for, that they're seeking. So if you've had accounts receivable experience, or you've had AP experience, or whatever it is that the job description is seeking, that's what you would outline in your functional. So you'd have all your AP, you'd have AP listed, and then any relevant AP experience in that section. You'd have all your accounts receivable, you'd have that skill set listed next, and then anything that's related to that under there. And then below that, that's when you could list your titles and the roles that you held. But again, the primary focus is on the skill sets that you have. So that's the functional. I always encourage my clients to have their resumes no more than 2 pages. Now, when you're talking about a CV, a curriculum vitae, which are typically found in academia, those are much longer, and that's a whole separate conversation. But for just chronological or functional resumes, you want to try to keep it to 2 pages, if at all possible. And so there's some creative things that you can do with the margins and trying to widen and heighten, just expand as much as you can so you can get as much content in there and not too much white space. But the eyes rely on that white space in order to see easily. So you want your resume to be easy on the eyes and not heavy laden with words. And so when you are looking at the skills that you want to have listed on your resume, definitely focus on those ones that are just, give you just power. They're packed. They speak volumes about what you have done. And so that's so important when you're trying to determine what to have on there and what not to. And especially as your experience continues to grow, you'll be forced to make some choices about what type of information you have listed, because, as I stated, you don't want your resume to be pages. You think about Rapunzel's hair. You don't want it to be as long as Rapunzel's hair. And the other item I wanted to share is just to make certain that you try to craft it where your education, you can have your education at the top or you can have your education at the bottom. It really depends on what you're trying to say and what's most important. Oftentimes people, especially those who are just coming out of school, they'll have their education at the top because they have their GPA included, which is fine. Now, once you are in college and you are trying while you're in college, you can still have your GPA because that's appropriate. Professors and individuals who are seeking to hire interns, they're looking for that. But once you graduate, that GPS goes off. And so I encourage high school students to also have a resume. So if you have nieces and nephews or grandchildren that they're a junior or senior and they don't have resumes yet, encourage them to connect with their school counselor or someone else. I'm also a professional that helps or works with high school students to create their resume. They may think they don't have any experience, but their volunteer experience and any type of work experience that they've had while in high school will absolutely help shape their resume. And so we want to get them in the habit of documenting what they've done. Also, if they've excelled in any type of leadership roles, that's all pertinent information and information that will be needed once they start applying for colleges or technical schools or just working right after high school. They will need a resume. A resume is absolutely important. And if you have been in the workforce for a while and have not had anyone look at your resume, I would encourage you to connect with someone professionally and have them take a look at it because you would be surprised at the number of resumes that I get that are just not well written at all. And I get it. Not everybody is a resume writer. I totally understand. But you can still indicate what you've done and have a cohesive explanation of where you've been and what roles, and it doesn't require an extensive amount of experience in order to be able to do that. So there are tons of resources available, and if you want to work with someone personally, you can actually do that. So I'm just checking my notes. And so yes, that's to recap, chronological, that's having your experience listed in reverse chronological order, whereas a functional is you are looking at the function. You're focusing primarily on what has been done, what you've done, and the functional resume is perfect for those individuals who are trying to transition. So if you've been in an industry for a while, you've had a career for a long time, and you want to get into something new, functional resume is the way to go. Because as you remember, as I stated earlier, it highlights the skills that you have and just really pinpoints, and you need to have it coupled with the job description. So you're speaking specifically to what they're seeking and compared to what you've done. So there is a way to make your skills transferable. And I know that oftentimes individuals who served in the armed forces, they have a challenge of trying to make that jump or that transition. And so there are definitely organizations that help individuals who have served, who are trying to make certain that what they've done previously is transferable to what they're trying to do once they get into the civilian life or once they're finished serving. So that was a mouthful, wasn't it? I think this is probably one of my longest videos, but chronological and functional is a lot of information. So again, try to keep it down to 2 pages. And if you are just still in your industry, I would encourage you to use chronological. You have your title listed, as well as the city and state, and the time frame, which is the month and the year. Functional, you're talking specifically about the skill sets and how you have, where you've gained that experience, not where, but how you've gained that type of experience that is pertinent to that particular opportunity. Keep in mind, you will most likely need to change your resume as it pertains to the role for which you're applying. So you may have a training resume, you may have a recruiting resume, you may have an accounting resume. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. So that's it for chronological and functional. Feel free to ask any questions that you have. And as I shared before, if you would like to work with me personally, feel free to send me a private message and we can talk about what an hour session looks like. But essentially, in an hour, you would have an enhanced resume as well as a cover letter and your elevator pitch, which is extremely important. And so that's the package that I'm offering if you want to work with me. So again, Shatanice Reese. Find me on LinkedIn, find me on Facebook, find me on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and you can certainly continue to watch our videos. Tune in tomorrow as we talk about awards, certifications, and if you should include references available upon request. That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow for day 5. We're on 5 days. Tomorrow will be the 5th day. So I appreciate you joining me on this Saturday afternoon. And don't forget to share. Or if you're on my YouTube channel, subscribe so you can always be updated whenever I put out new content. So enjoy your Saturday, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.